Hey all, Dorian here, and for today's build we're going to Henford-on-Bagley, which is part of the cottage living expansion, for my interpretation of a bit of a derelict farm. As I was building this out, I kind of had a little storyline built in my head, so maybe your sim inherited this farm from a long lost relative and they were kind of used this opportunity to start over, not realizing that the place maybe wasn't in the best shape. I mean, it is a fully functional house, but I did include the off the grid and simply living plot traits to it, or plot challenges to it, I should say. Off the grid, is the one where you don't have electricity and you don't have working plumbing, and simply living is the one where you have to buy all the groceries in order to cook stuff. Off the grid, I figured this would be sort of a shed that was maybe a few hundred years old, and it may have been something that they have not added rent power or plumbing to. And in simply living, I like the idea of your sim, you know, needing to go to town, to buy their food, to buy their groceries, to cook their food, and interact with the townspeople. Because I will say the cottage living pack has a really robust little town area, and really robust NPCs. So I kind of wanted you to take advantage of that. With that said, you download this, you can make any changes as needed. But yeah, it's kind of like a small almost single room. There is a separate bathroom, obviously, but kind of like a single room little shed that may have been something several hundred years old. As you see right now, I'm building out like the trying to decide floors, but you can kind of see I have the stove separated. Kind of just have the stove and it's like a little fireplace area. In my mind, when this house would have been originally built, that would have been an open fire pit where you would cook your meals. I would say they probably made some upgrades since then, added the wood burning stove, but that's why it's still kind of separated into a little hearth area. And the time since the house was built, they probably would have added a separate indoor bathroom, which is why I made the wall paneling a little bit different from the rest of the house. Figure that's newer feature. It's still complete, still extremely outdated, and I used the outdoor retreat plumbing feature, shower and sink to kind of so it would function off the grid. But right now we're putting in a small little kitchen area. I would say I did use the laundry day pack for this as well, just because I really like some of the features they had, especially this utility sink, as well as the idea of being able to have a clothesline, have a little wash basin. I thought that would make perfect sense for this property. The lighting, I end up using. I think they're the gothic candles from the vampire pack. It's still not my favorite, but there aren't a whole lot of off the grid lighting options. I did try to put some lanterns everywhere to kind of balance it out a bit. I didn't like the one. I think it's like a little succulent in a mason jar light that comes with cottage living. So I ended up sticking with the candles for now. So I figured candles would make sense, even though it looks a little more ornate than what I would imagine a house of this area would probably have. But yeah, at this point, we're just filling out the decor. Wasn't a whole lot to the house. It's relatively straightforward, but had a bed, gave it a table, gave it a very small kitchen. I put the hail bells in the corner, just to kind of represent the fact that this is a farmhouse. I would imagine some aspect of the farm would be inside. I did put a little, you know, stack of fire logs off to the side, since this is a wood burning stove. To me, it would make sense. And then we have a small crate with a pot on it. So nothing too crazy. The pot is another thing. It's part of the I think it's part of the outdoor retreat pack as well. Um, so if you don't have that pack, I don't think it's going to be a huge detriment. You may have to replace some of the plumbing stuff, but losing that pot, I don't think it's going to be a huge thing. But yeah, at this point, like I said, there isn't a whole lot to do on the interior because there's a relatively small, straightforward build. So you'll see a lot of the Speedville video is devoted to the exterior. I tried to make the house look a little bit more overgrown, partially to hide those beams that are kind of sticking out. Because if you notice, um, I did remove the roof just so you can see through to the thatching. And I put some beams on the side, and they're kind of sticking out. So part of the overgrowth was to try to hide that a bit, but also this isn't it's not wasn't a completely abandoned property, but it is something that maybe wasn't left in the best shape. So there was a lot of plants creeping up the walls, creeping through the roof a little bit. And as you'll see as we kind of expand upon the property itself, I add a lot of overgrowth. I still wanted to make this a fully functional property and a fully functional farm, so there is you'll see there's going to be a stable, a chicken coop, a few garden plots, but I tried to fill in, put some overgrowth in where I thought it would make sense so it wouldn't, block your sim from using those things, but I thought it added a little bit to the, idea of the property. But yeah, at this point, we're just kind of filling out the overgrowth for the little house slash shed itself. I do end up adding a little bit more, as you'll see in the final reveal, just because I wanted to put, a little more overgrowth around the property. But yeah, at this point, we're just sort of starting to flesh some things out. Yeah, just putting some dirt around the actual house. And eventually I did have the wash basin inside, but from what I've seen like old TV shows, they never did like the washing inside like that. So I do end up putting like a little shed out by the pier by the pond, and I end up putting it out there. So feel free to change it as needed, but to me it would make more sense out there, and I did want it to be in a covered spot. But yeah, we have a little pier. We have our little, little shed, little utility shed off to the side. Again, where I end up putting the wash basin. I did figure that would be a little bit more of a modern addition, so I did put like a stainless steel roof and a little updated paneling a bit. But yeah, so what else we got going on? So we have our lantern, we have a low rug, and then the rest of the speed build, you're gonna see a lot of it is just a lot of decor. I do add like I said, I do add a stable, I do add a chicken coop. I've added, which I thought turned out really nicely. I took one of the debug tractors from Cottage Living, and I put like a lot of plants around it. It may look like it was overgrown, as in it hadn't been touched in, probably several years. I think that turned out quite nicely. You'll also see in this video, I edited out some of it, but I left quite a bit of it in. I ended up running into, I think it's a glitch with one of the Cottage Living fences, like the wooden fence. Once I put a gate down, certain parts of the fence would disappear, and I kept trying to remove it and redo it. I think you'll see at one point I ended up leaving the lot and going back in. I ended up not being successful in getting it to reappear, so I finally just got frustrated with it, and I put some bushes in to kind of show the overgrowth, but B, just to kind of cover up the fact that I think the fence is still technically there, but there are gaps in it just because of the way the game was working. And actually, yeah, it's coming up shortly. But you can kind of see where I did the overgrowth with the tractor, and yeah, I think you'll start seeing like the little glitchy stuff I'm having here, and I just couldn't figure out what it was. So if you download this a little bit later, this is mid-August when I'm recording this. If you download this a little bit later, you may not experience this. Maybe it's something they will have fixed by then. But yeah, this was several minutes of frustration right here trying to figure out why this fence wasn't cooperating with me. But I think the overgrowth in the end kind of, I think it worked out well for what I was trying to go for here. And it did a fairly good job of hiding the fact that, it looks like part of the fence is missing. I think like I said, I think it's still there, but, it is what it is. This is relatively newer pack. I'm sure they haven't worked out all the kinks. But yeah. Like I said, a lot of the rest of the speed build portion, I should say, is just a lot of overgrowth, trying to, make it look like it's a little more lived in, but also maybe some parts of this haven't been used in several years. So you'll see as I do the dirt paths, I do find some grass just to kind of fill it in. And yeah, I think that is the gist of it at this point. So enjoy the last few minutes of the speed build, and I will talk to you again for the final reveal and walkthrough.
And I'm back for the final reveal and walkthrough of our little derelict farm in Henford-on-Bagley as part of the Cards Living Pack. I didn't make too many changes from the speed build. The only thing I did add a little more vegetation around the farm just to make it around the little house, I should say, just to fill this out a little bit more. And then especially since I was playing this, I think in the spring, so a lot of this grass wasn't really showing up, so you couldn't really see a whole lot here. So if you have seasons, it's hopefully this fills it out a little bit more. I haven't looked at this in the other seasons, but I think it should mostly be okay. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty well. We have our little small house. We have our fenced-in animal shed, which I'll actually highlight this while we're here. You can kind of see what I was talking about in the speed build, where some of the fencing is just doesn't. It looks like it's not there. I'm pretty sure it is, but like these little cross beam sections were disappearing once I put the gates in, and I couldn't figure out how to fix it. So I just put bushes to kind of hide it. Kind of let it works out and it lends itself to kind of the overgrowth, but mainly it's just done to hide the fact that I couldn't figure out how to get past this glitch. This video is being recorded mid-August 2021, so the pack has been out less than a month at this point. So if you download this or watch this later, this may have been something that's been resolved. Yeah, do with that what you will. But for right now, this mainly just to kind of hide the fact that I couldn't fix it and I ended up getting frustrated. But yeah, so no, but this, I wanted to show the fact that this maybe this land hasn't been completely abandoned, but maybe hasn't been left in the best condition. So the animal shed and the garden plots and the chicken shed and the chicken coop, everything all works. I didn't put a fence around the chicken coop just because of my frustrations with the fence. B, smaller farms like this, I don't necessarily think you need to fence in your chickens because there isn't really a whole lot else around you. So I don't think it's a big deal if they end up kind of going everywhere. But you know, feel free to change this up as needed. One thing I did was really happy with the way it turned out was kind of like this derelict tractor with the overgrowth around it. Um, Even though this tree is technically clipping into here, I think it would make sense to kind of you have some trees and branches kind of poking their way through. Um, and then yeah, in the live mode we have our duck spawners. There are some firefly spawners as well, which looks really cool at night. As I saw when I was kind of play testing this. But yeah, let's go ahead and do our official walkthrough of the property. So the house itself, there isn't a whole lot to it. So we have our stove that's kind of built into the hearth. We have our small little kitchen. Again, it did use quite a bit of laundry day in here with the rug and then this utility sink. I just thought the utility sink, A, it's functional off the grid. B, I just thought it made sense in here. Um, but feel free to switch this out as needed. But yeah, we have our bed. We do have our, they're a little more gothic, a little more ornate than I would have liked, but I think the candles, lends itself very well. If you don't have the vampire pack, you won't have these, so you might need to find some alternate lighting sources. We do have a few oil lamps in here, but you may need to add a few more. Um, in this small bathroom, we have straightforward toilet, shower, sink. The shower and the sink are from the outdoor retreat. I think that's what it's called, the outdoor retreat pack. So if you don't have that, you may have to make some substitutions. But these were functional off the grid, and they're look like they're homemade. So I thought they kind of lent themselves well in here. And yeah, that's kind of it for the property itself. I know it's a little dark during my playthrough. I kind of turned on auto lights, but I think you still kind of get the general gist of what this looks like. But yeah, the rest of the property, we said we have since I did use laundry day for the sink, I figured I'd go all in, and we have our wash basin and the little utility shed. We also have our clotheslines. We do have like this animal shed should be fully functional. It's fully fenced in. There isn't anything I don't think should block it. We do have our chicken coop. We have a little pier off to the pond. We have a couple fishing spots in the pond. And yeah, a lot of a little bit of overgrowth with some of the nature, but I think I think that's pretty much it. So like I said, you're somewhat derelict farm. Figure a good opportunity for your sim to get a fresh start. And then I think there's some really cool gameplay opportunities here. Like you could, after you accrued a certain amount of money, you could, maybe turn off the lot challenges, or if you wanted to go all in on the off the grid, you get enough money, you could put in solar panels or like water reclamator. But as I was putting this together in my head, I figured this would be, a sim who moves into this lot doesn't really know what they're getting themselves into, and they kind of build it out from there. So, not quite rags to riches. I know traditionally rags to riches, you don't start with a house at all, but kind of a pseudo, I think this would be really cool, like pseudo rags to riches, where maybe you start with nothing and you have to become self-sustaining, and then you can expand or change this house as needed once you acquire some money. But again, the options are limitless. This is going to be available in the gallery. My EA ID is DorianKoholi, and I hope you check this out. I hope you like it, and I hope maybe you check out some of my other builds and some of my other YouTube videos. I'll say if you like this one, please consider liking and subscribing. If you have any recommendations for changes to this property or something you might want to see as part of a future video, feel free to drop a comment. Yeah, I will leave you at that. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great day.